John, you know, we all know that, and this becomes a bit of a generational thing, but many of us have gone through, I don't know how many formats in our music collection. I've got a comedian friend who says he's getting off the merry-go-round. He's not going to buy his Beatles collection one more time. Because we've already gone through so many format changes. You know, if you happen to be a boomer, you've probably gone through several format changes in music.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've actually have several Jimi Hendrix collections.
Have we kind of finally arrived at where we're going to be in terms of how we access music? Is it all going to be digital download?
I believe that's I don't think it's going to change. We might have another format that might be smaller, you know, I think, so it's even faster downloads. But then again, it might be, in my opinion, the way I see things are going, it's going to be some type of a format that's going to have video and audio mixed in with it. Because multimedia is definitely the future. And you can obviously tell that with a lot of stuff that's happening on YouTube. My website, bornamusician.com, is a digital distribution service, and we offer the opportunity for musicians to put their music online to sell. And one of the things, features that we have that's very cool is that we offer YouTube distribution, and it's at the same plane level as the major labels. So it definitely, and that's been a big thing for us because, you know, the guys upload their music. What happens is YouTube created this thing about 6 months ago or less, where they put a watermark on the audio file. So when the music gets uploaded to them, they identify it, and then they pay you 60% more in the U.S. than they would normally pay from themselves through our services. The cool thing about this is that if anybody were to, let's say, steal your music or upload your music without your permission, the artist still gets paid for the views. So it's a really cool thing that's happening because now because, you know, a lot of this stuff in the past they were doing illegal downloads and stuff like that. So this is a means to try to stop that, but at the same time, if it is happening, it's actually beneficial for the artist.
You know, in this past year, CD sales actually took a bit of a blip upwards for the first time in years. Is that a temporary thing, do you think, or are we going to see CD sales, actual, you know, physical CD sales drop off again?
Well, you know, when you were talking about format changes, one thing that's really interesting is that even though a lot of people think that might go away, but when bands are performing live, that's what they use to sell. I'm assuming that one of these, there was a group called I know you've heard of them, probably the Flaming Lips. They did this interesting promo that they made this skull made out of like a jelly bean skull, like they say, it's a candy, and they put a USB drive inside, and they actually sold 500,000 copies. And it was a very unique promo because you had to eat through it to get to this drive, right, which had videos and pictures and all that stuff. So I think there's going to be a lot of innovative ways to promote in it, but you can't take, I think you can't take that physical side out of it because you know, one time I own a recording studio, and I had this a bunch of people over, like 50 people, and we had a questionnaire about what was going on in the industry, and it was really interesting how the young kids that were in this gathering that we had said that they didn't like MP3s. They wanted to hold something in their hand and read it, and I go like, wow, isn't that interesting? That's what I used to do, right? You know, get an album and look at it and kind of gaze at it and just look at all the pictures and read all the credits and see who did this and who performed on what, right? So when you get these MP3s, it's kind of like you're really out of touch with the artist because there's nothing there just but the title and to listen to the song. So I think that the multimedia part is definitely going to be something that has to come in to kind of replace that thing that you hold in your hand. But I think that at one point, I think there's always going to be something physical. Bon Jovi actually came out on a TV show, I think it was Katie Couric, and he showed this new product that he had, that he can point with his phone at this picture and it would change the image of the, you know, of the record, and there was all these little things that were hidden within the album cover. So I think there's always going to be this thing where they're going to try to create new cool things to, you know, keep people excited.
It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it, John, that I think there was a point where we thought that the only people who really wanted to have that kind of tactile experience where you're actually holding it and reading the liner notes and all the rest of that, that you had to be hardcore musical junkie. But you're saying that's not the experience that you've had with the young people.
No, I think that, you know, a lot of them, when, you know, because like I said, I own a studio, so we talk a lot, and a lot of them feel they don't like the fact that they can't put their lyrics on something. Of course, they can put it on a website, right? But then, I guess right now with the, you know, we have the iPad and all these, you know, notebook type of computers, it makes it a little bit easier. And there's actually something that came out a little while back, and I guess it's going to become popular, and it's called the iTunes booklet. So it's kind of like, it's kind of a digital CD cover, basically. So it's going to have more information. So that's coming around the corner right now. It's, in some cases, some people are already offering that service. But it's not a standard yet. So I think, you know, with all this stuff that we have with the iPads and stuff like that, you're going to see more of that coming, and that's a good thing because, like I said, you know, if you're a fan, you want to know about the band that you love, and you want to know everything about them. So, you know, that information has to be accessible.
To what extent does the new technology affect the quality of the sound that we're getting? You know, is there a noticeable difference between me putting on an album or putting on a CD on my home stereo or plugging in my iPad or my iPod and listening to music that way?
Well, yes, there is a difference. I mean, you know, you obviously know that. I mean, analog, the days of the 2-inch machines, you still compare them A, B, and there's a noticeable difference, right? But it's been getting, it's really, really close right now. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that are developing these DSP chips that are really, really, they're doing like these blind tests, and people say they can't tell the difference, you know. But you know, the old format was very cumbersome and very costly to maintain. So I think it's just probably another more year or two, because there's these products right now that offer like rack mount gear built into your computer, basically, analog type of stuff, and the people swear by it that they can't tell the difference, you know. So I think it's right around the corner. Of course, MP3s lose a bit of quality, lose a little bit of low end, but with all this new technologies coming around. And you know, there's different formats around the world too. I mean, we use MP4s with iTunes and MP3s, right, with Amazon. But you know, in Europe, they have other formats where people actually pay a little bit more money for, which are called FLAC files, and they're about 1/5 the size of a WAV file. So they definitely keep the quality, you know, in check, you know, if you want to put it that way. So there is, but I think we're getting so close to it right now that it's going to be a point where you're not going to be able to really tell that difference.
Because the consumer has demanded it.
Of course. I mean, you know, you went out, I'll give you a good example. I mean, you know, I'm a diehard Pink Floyd fan, right? And when you listen to Dark Side of the Moon on a album, and then you put the CD in, it's like, oh my God, what happened? Where's all that? Where did the vibe go? You know, it just totally disappears, you know? So, of course, it's been remastered a couple of times because as equipment has gotten better. They've actually released a couple of different versions of it, digitally remastered. But I remember listening to the record, and there was like, what happened to all that harmonic sound? It was gone, you know. So, but that's, but like I said, it's, you know, things are coming. You know, we're moving ahead very quickly with technology, and you know, several years ago, nobody knew what to do as far as what happened with the coming of the, you know, the digital downloads, because everybody was kind of like up and roar, and I think what, in my opinion, is that when you look at what happened with the major labels, right, they kind of fell asleep at the wheel. I mean, they should have got into it and said, look, we need to develop something, and then, you know, lo and behold, Steve Jobs comes along, and he said, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I guess I will. I'm just speaking for him, right? But that's pretty much what he did, you know. And then he created a new standard. So
because in the past, all of the technological changes, those format changes we've been talking about, were all kind of driven by the record companies. And then
right,
all
exactly.
Of a sudden, say they kind of fell asleep at the switch, and they've been left behind, and they've been playing catch up ever since. They still haven't really figured out how to deal with this.
Yeah, it's like the analogy of the frog that's put in, in a pot of cold water, and they turn up the heat, and it stays in there, and then and if you throw a frog into boiling water, he's going to jump out. Well, they didn't do that. They kind of just stayed in there and just kind of like died, with the change. I think what it was is they were comfortable. They were really comfortable. They were making a lot of money, I mean, we're talking about an industry that was $5 billion strong, and now it's down to like 1.5 or something like that. So it's like, what happened? And I think a lot of them, they didn't think it was going to happen that way. But, I remember when the change, I think it was around, 2000, 2001, right between 2000 and 2002, when you saw all the record shops closing down. All of a sudden, they were just going like flies, and little by little. So they weren't ready for it. They were definitely, and the interesting part was, and there's something to say about the music industry, and this is like a critique, but it's in a way it's a positive critique, right? We're the only entertainment industry, and like you got sports like the MLB, Major League Baseball, the NBA, you have NFL, and you've got sports, and of course you have art and other formats, right? We are the only industry that doesn't take care of the people that we try to promote. In other words, we get a young artist, put him out there, throw him on the stage. We don't, talk to him about learning about business or, help him psychologically. Like the NFL, they actually assign a psychologist to you. They actually a business manager, and they want you to understand that, it's not going to be easy to become famous, right? Because there's a lot of pressures that come with fame, and the music industry never did that, and they still are not doing it. So I think that, they didn't focus on one important thing. If you have an artist, that artist is the golden egg. Now, it seems logical that you should shine that golden egg, and you should take care of it, but they never did that. Until this day, they never have. So I have this saying that I go that was never right from the start. And it seems to... we're going into the future. This is like 2013. You would think that music would have evolved into something even better as far as financially. And what's happened is now it's worse than ever. So even though we've got all this great technology, we can take pictures, we can manipulate things on our computer and do all this stuff, but the artists are not making. They're making 5, 6, 7 times less money than the artists were before making. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, and there's this whole thing that, for some reason it's like that now, where it's this cool factor. I do it for the love of art. Well, that's cool. I play for my mom for the love of art, for my friends for the love of art, but not for a club or for a concert venue. So, I mean, they're making money, so I should make money too. So I think that's part of a big problem that's happening right now. And a lot of the major artists, like, I've heard Elton John talk about it on the news, Paul McCartney, Bon Jovi. They're not happy. Vince Gill had an interview I was reading about, and they're not happy about these things because that actually it's like a trickle-down effect, and it's affected them. So our company, bornAmusician.com, our focus is, and our mission statement is to enhance the musical economy. Our goal is to help artists to make money, and I'm actually challenging, manufacturers. I'm talking to a lot of manufacturers, by the way, and it's been very positive. But I'm challenging other music manufacturers that are out there to find ways to create means for artists to make money. Because if they're selling musical instruments, I think would be only, sensible or common sense for them to create programs that could create income for artists, because that's going to bring more business to them in return. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, you reminded me of when you were talking about companies looking after the artists and kind of nurturing them. And I think back to what Berry Gordy Jr. was doing at Motown, where those people were really schooled.
Right, exactly.
In how to deal with life as a performer.
It was probably the only label that did that. And you know what's interesting? There's a lot of things. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking to somebody the other night about this, and they said, "Well, yeah, he did that, but he didn't pay any monies out to the artist." I said, "Well, first of all, they weren't the ones writing the music, and there was Barry Gordy and some other writers. It was Smokey Robinson, Holitzer, I believe his name was. And so the Temptations and the Supremes and all that stuff, they didn't write the lyrics or the music, so, you know, of course they're not going to get the royalties because they weren't the songwriters. So that's kind of, but one thing that I admire that man, because he really proved that artist development works, because let's say, for example, you can walk down a lobby of any hotel anywhere in the world, and at one moment you're going to hear a song very lowly played from maybe from The Garden or something like that, like My Girl or something from from the Supremes, and you got to say to yourself, wow, this music is, it's living through time. It's not going to go away.
Well, yeah, and there's no question that the Supremes or the Temps or the Tops or any of those acts would not have flourished with another label, because they wouldn't have got that same kind of grooming and schooling.
Exactly, and like that's one thing I say to the young artists is that I've been talking to a lot of producers lately, because we're all brainstorming to come up with ideas to help the artists to make money. One thing I gotta say to them, I said, we might live in this time that a lot of things are easy to put together because computers make it a lot easier, but it doesn't take away the fact that you need to practice, and you still have to work at your craft, and you still have to do it diligently. So it's nothing comes from nothing. So there's just like this feeling now that you get with all these contests and everything that is going on. There's like this money tree out there, and there is no money tree. So giving away your music for free is giving away your intellectual property, which is probably it's going to bring you, if you're lucky and people like your music, that's going to bring you the most income anyway, through licensing and other things. So then performing.
Why have musicians, John, devalued themselves so much? There are people who will allow TV shows to play their songs just for the exposure, and they say, well, people die of exposure.
I know. We used to joke about that, said you could die from exposure. So it's that's funny, but you're absolutely. You know what it is? It's a trend. They were led. See, I'm going to make a bold statement right now. They've been led to believe that this is supposed to be cool, right? And I'll tell you that when this SOPA Act happened about a year ago, what was it? November of last year, and the U.S. Senate passed the law, and then when it went to Congress, I mean, everybody just freaked out because this law would have been passed. That means the copyright amendments would have been passed, which have been going on. A lot of young artists don't know this, and you tell them, they go, "What do you mean?" Well, it's like they got these lobbyists that don't want this copyright law to pass, which means you're not going to make money off your royalties, and whatever they give you, they're just giving you a little trinkle, here's a little breadcrumbs for you. Because I said, don't you get it? I mean, they're putting TV commercials on your stuff, Are you getting paid for that? I mean, figure that out, duh, do the math, and so they thought that it was all part of this new thing, and that music is supposed to be free because these sites were promoting that. Put your music up there, let your friends share it with your friends, do this and that. Yeah, but they're not, but they're going, yeah, but by the way, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to put this little commercial on there, and I'm going to make money from it, but everything's cool, keep on doing that thing, So now they're getting hip to it because after, let's say, what has been 15 years since the internet just started, and now it's going strong, maybe 16. Well, I say it like this, well, boys and girls, if it hasn't worked in 15 years, it means it's not going to work. So,
because there are always those examples, right? Because the Fray goes on Grey's Anatomy with how to save a life, and the Fray, that did great things for them.
Right.
All these other young people are saying, "Oh, well, I'll do that too." That's the way it's done. They don't realize that that was the rarity, that was the exception to the rule.
Right, and I remember when great causes came to the table, musicians would gather to help people, whatever, in a disaster, let's say, for example. Now it's like almost like everything that happens, I'm going to write a song for it, let's do a charity, it's like that's what we're about. No, come on, we're artists, we're creators, and it's like other countries, like in Europe, that doesn't happen. They actually subsidize musicians' pay in many countries because they know that artists have to have time to be able to create. And what's interesting, and my partners are from Europe, right? And I tell them that I admire the things that they're doing because a lot of the jobs, the licensing jobs that are happening on American TV they're being done by the Europeans. And why? Because they're doing better business than we are. So here we are giving away, like you were mentioning, oh, let's put it on there so I can get some exposure, while other people that know how to do business are making money while we're there just lollygagging and just, not making any money at all. So we need to learn about these things, I think with all this, all this technology that was developed, like the file sharing websites and sites that help you sell your music and stuff like that, if you really think about it and you talk to the guys, if you get a chance where you can read interviews about the guys who put it together, they all say one thing in common. They did this to help artists make money. But, it's that move that a lot of artists do that's like a desperate move where they just say, oh, if somebody only hears my music, I'll become famous. Yeah, okay, well, buddy, somebody likes your music, fine, but you still have to do hundreds of shows and you still have to do all this stuff. It's not easy. There's a lot of work to it, and it's
John, that leads you to the kind of line that's being fed to young singers and songwriters and musicians, that all you have to do is go on American Idol, win it, you'll become rich and famous. You don't actually have to do a few thousand. Like there's that 10,000 hour rule,
right? Where
you have to get really good at something. I know a lot of our audience will know this. To get really good at something, you got to put about 10,000 hours into it.
That's true, though.
And that message is not being driven to young artists. It's go into your basement, make a record. I use the word record, but make a record, get it out there, and that'll be it. And that's all you need to do.
Right.
That you don't need to polish your craft to really find who you are as an artist, to spend those 10,000 hours getting really good. I mean, it was no accident. Use the Beatles as an example. It was no accident that those guys were ready for the big time.
Oh no, they worked really hard. I mean, they were like. I mean, we had this conversation last night. They were like, they super polished those guys when they before they actually made it big. So you're absolutely right about that. And what's interesting is that like American Idol. And I don't like to critique things like this, but I'm going to make a comment about it. American Idol was basically a karaoke show, or karaoke, if you want to say it, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's what John Bon Jovi said too. That these are lounge singers.
Exactly. So my point is that have you ever been? I know you might have been in once. For me, it's been. They'll have to drag me into one. But have you ever been to a karaoke bar before?
Sadly, once.
So one time I was with my wife in Japan, and they drug us into this room, and I says, oh, God, please don't do this to me. But you know something, though? Everybody was going crazy. And I went to one here locally in Tampa, and you hear the people screaming, and this person is singing out of pitch, and I'm going like, that's why American Idol was successful. Because it did away with the it brought this animosity towards professionals, and it put everybody in one bag and shook it all up, and now I'm on the same level as you, buddy. And it's like, no, you're not. And I remember there was this.
Lots of people have great voices,
right?
But they're absolutely utterly forgettable because you don't believe anything they're singing to you.
Well, because they don't have that extra thing that like charisma or that vibe, that soul. And there's people that have the ability. They're so good at what they do. They can actually make you go through emotions. That's what a great artist can do. Some people sing because they sing, and it's true, like you said. They've got the voice. They never really worked at it, but they actually can sing. They can sing in church. They do really well doing that, or in other with other people, or maybe with a top 40 band. But to actually be a performer and be that person that's going to be unforgettable, there's a lot of work to that. So and that's what made see what happened was that's what made American Idol real popular, was that it was kind of like it's like going to the karaoke bar, pretty much, because they never had original music, that, and they never, they were only, and it seemed to be that whole thing, which I kind of don't like, but it's that reality show thing where people are making fun of somebody else singing bad. So, and that kind of kind of became the norm, and then everybody. I remember, you know, when it was really popular, people come in the studio. Oh, I'm going to do a demo because I'm going on American Idol. And I go like, okay. And they're putting their whole belief that, you know, they're going to do this, and there's their ticket. They don't need to, you know, you don't know how many countless conversations I have with some people about that, where they go, John, I'm going to do a demo in your studio, and I'm going to submit it. I'm going to go on American Idol, and I'm going to win. Wow, that's good. You're positive. Okay. So what are you doing to? Oh, I don't need to go out there and perform. This is going to be it. This is going to be my way in. And so they
have all the woodsheds been burned down.
You know, I don't know, man. That's a good one. Woodshedding. They definitely need to woodshed. You know, so but I think now it's finally, you know, turned around where people are being aware of like social media. They're starting to realize that a lot of people are starting to be you know, detached, and they're actually kind of talking about it. How, you know, you see more comments about it that we're being desensitized and stuff like that. But it doesn't. Music is never going to change when it comes to it, and it's never going to go away either. It's definitely going to turn around. And I will say this right now, that I'm very lucky to have met a lot of great people that I'm talking to right now that are helping me with our, you know, our mission to help musicians to make money. So it's going to happen, because there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated with that. And believe it or not, I've been doing quite a few radio interviews in the last couple of months, and there has not been one radio jock that's not in total agreement that things have to change as far as artists have to make money and they need to be more business savvy. And because what happened was, here's the problem. What happened was is that they complained about the majors so much, right? And then when the change come in, it was the opportunity for them to be their own business person. But they didn't want it, though. The part where a lot of, you know, musicians have trouble with this, a lot of them will talk about this, but the reality is that you know, they always say that musicians are not really good at doing business, but I don't agree with that. I think it is because it's just lack of education, and I think that we need to, and I say when we, I mean record companies, recording studios, manufacturers need to help re-educate musicians to let them know that it's a myth, you know, this giving away thing, or what's been going on for more than 50 years or whatever. It's a myth, you know, thinking that you don't have to think about business, because you do. I mean, if you do a day job, you're making money and you're working for the man, right? Yeah. So why not work for yourself?
So John, we need to convince, first thing, we need to convince musicians to stop devaluing their own work.
Right.
But secondly, we also have to convince the public to stop stealing it.
You know, you know what? There's something to be said about that. You know, and I feel very strongly about that. You can't blame the public too much if the musicians are the one who started it. You know, or some people that were promoting this file sharing thing. If you know, I did artist relations for a microphone company many years ago, and I signed a bunch of artists, right? And I remember my boss coming to me one day, and he said to me, he said, man, you know, I think it would be better if we sold the microphones at a real low price, because some of these guys are not bringing their stuff on tour, right? And they would send me on the road, and I would go to all these great shows, and it was true. So what would happen was, if a guy bought a $350 microphone for $15, let's say, because it was below cost, you know, it was just a charge for the material, let's just say, right? That guy had that microphone all the time. I mean, everywhere. He'd carry it he would never let it go. But if they got it for free, most of those guys wouldn't do it. You know, and so it goes back to that whole thing about is, if you don't have nothing invested into something, you're not going to have any love for it, or you're not going to have any appreciation for it. It's like when I buy a CD, or I download an MP3 of some, you know, like we talked about earlier about having our fourth generation of file formats with our favorite musicians, right? We went from album to cassette to 8-track to CDs. Now we bought the version on MP3, right? You listen to it because you paid for it. So that's the whole thing. You know, it's this belief that I have that, it's I very always have a trouble saying this word, reciprocity, right? Where if you get, there's this scientific study that was done by several times actually in a couple of decades by psychologists, where they say that if somebody gives you something for free, the reaction of people is not positive. But if it's loved ones, your wife, your girlfriend, your best friend or something like that, or your brother, well, it's different because there's this closeness factor. So it's like a gift, right? But when you give it to somebody that doesn't know you, there's the reaction of that person is to feel like, oh man, I owe this guy now, and I don't even like this style of music, right? So I talk to a lot of bands and I say, and they always have the same response, which I'm very happy about to say. They say, now, when you gave away that record, I bet you went back and asked them, did they listen to it? Oh yeah, I'd asked them like 3 months later. And what did they tell you? That it was in the back seat of their car still? He goes, how did you know that? I said, because they didn't care, man. You gave them the record, they threw it in the back seat of the car, they're not going to listen to it. And now, they're more upset because now they go, oh, and they said, I just didn't have a time to get around to listen to it. Well, there hasn't been an artist I haven't talked to that hasn't happened to. So it proves the fact that there is something to say about that scientific study. So the problem that most artists have is what I call fear of rejection, where it's the common thing that happens to anybody that sells. You can sell cars, you can sell clothing, whatever, right? You try to make a sale. The odds are you're going to sell 1 or 2 out of 10. So you're going to have to learn how to deal with that. So people say, no, thank you very much, maybe next time. Some people will say to you, it's not really my style of music. I like you, you're really cool. Let me think about it, So you're going to always have these different reactions, and what you got to be really good at is having a great response. And it's great training if you want to be an entertainer, because you have to know how to deal with people when you're performing live. So, let's
face it, if you sell 1 million albums, there's 340 million other people in America who didn't buy it.
Exactly. I mean, it's not everybody's it's just not going to happen, right? So, and of course, there's phenomena where about how that one record sold so many, but you're talking about the world now. You're not talking about like Michael Jackson when he sold 35 million copies. I believe it was Thriller. It was when it first came out, it was 25 million copies, but as the years went by, it went higher, of course. So but that's the world. That's not the United States. That's people from Japan, from everywhere. From Europe. So. How many people we have on the face of this planet? So do the math, So it's just a speck of sand compared to.
You say the musicians have to drive this change, though, John. That's kind of the message that to sort of encapsulate everything we've been talking about for the last half an hour. It's that the musicians themselves have to drive this change, and that's what bornamusician.com is about.
Right. We're definitely about that, and actually, what I'm doing right now is that everybody that's signing up with me, I'm actually making little video commercials for free for them. They're loving it, and the reason why we're doing that is because I'm helping them to promote their music. We put our logos on it, but we also promote them. It's a very positive thing, and they get paid for the views. So that's our way of saying, look, if you just do this, this can make you money. We only put a minute of the music. I always advise artists, don't put the whole song online, because it's like a movie trailer. If you put a whole, that's why they call it a trailer, right? You see a little bit of it, and you go, wow, I like that. That's really going to be a cool movie. I'm going to go see it. Well, it's the same thing applies to music. So let's say you have it on your website, and people can listen to your music from top to bottom, it's not going to give them any incentive to buy it. And there's nothing, and I always say this to the young artists, you have no idea what it feels like when you start selling music until it happens. So it's a really good feeling. Just give it a chance, and you'll see that you can make money doing this. You just gotta be a little bit more business savvy. That's all.
John, it's been great to chat with you tonight. I've kept you longer than I intended to, but we've covered a lot of ground. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Geoff. Really, it's been really good talking to you. You made me laugh quite a few times. That was cool. I really enjoyed talking to you.
John, that was great stuff, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's good. We talked about great singers and people who can make you believe something and really feel it.
Mm-hmm. And there's going to be
when I think of the stuff that I still listen to, from the last 40 years, you know, I'm still, when Levon Helm sings something to me, I know I can believe it, right? Or when whoever it is, right? And all the people who I've always loved, you know, I still love her. You know, when Annie Lennox delivers a lyric.
Oh, she's amazing. And not only, she delivers it, but when you watch her on stage, she physically puts you in this place, you know?
Yeah, she embodies it. You know, and Katie Lang is like that, too, you know, and all the really great ones. And then I look at this, like I said, it was Bon Jovi's line about American Idol. He said that, you know, they're really just lounge singers. And he's right. There are a lot of people with nice voices, but you'll like this. There's a steel plant in Sudbury, Ontario called Stelco. So you need to know that just before I tell the story, and I'll let you go.
Okay.
But I was working doing radio.
Are you there?
We had this guy in our newsroom, and he was a fucking terrible newsman, but he had beautiful pipes, right? And so one of our guys was saying, one of our guys was shitting all over him, and I sort of felt obliged to say something nice. I said, well, you know, he's got great pipes on him. And the guy turns to me and he says, yeah, so did my old boss at Stelco. like who cares, right? So a lot of these people got the great pipes. But it's like the guitar, you know, as a guitar player, you know, like it's like the guys who play a million notes, but they don't mean anything, you know?
Wow, I'm glad you said, you know, that's one thing that, you know, I'm a guitar player. Since I'm a guitar player, one thing that to me is really important, it's got to be tasty, man. I mean, it's not just... I mean,
when Ry Cooder comes on, you know who it is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Or, you know, whoever your favorite player might happen to be. That's just my personal taste.
You know what? Ironically, I'm gonna mention one guitar player but he is the epitome of the single note. You know, he's the guy that, you know, it's like B.B. King. You know, when B.B. King comes across, he plays that one, you know, hits that one note, but everybody loves it. You know.
Yeah.
And they get it, you know, and so it's not about all that flash and all that speed and all that stuff. That's nice too, you know. It has its moments, you know, but it's not supposed to be on full time, you know.
Yeah, but that's why Clapton is who he is, because he can do both.
Right, exactly. Clapton's really good.
One of my favorite solos of his is at the end of a George Harrison song called "If That's What It Takes."
Oh yeah. They did a beautiful tribute,
and they just do this little vamp at the end, you know, if that's what it takes, and you know, Jeff Lynne produced it, I think, and then Clapton does this little solo over the end of it, and I get goosebumps every time I hear it, because it's this beautiful, immaculate playing that just serves the song.
Well, you see what you just said too. You said you got goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the artists have to understand, that it's not just about playing the notes. There's something actually very spiritual, very, you know, deep that happens with art. And when somebody's really good at it and in touch with it, that's what happens to us, right? We get goosebumps. Yeah. We go like, or you know, we can get even emotional. You know, I mean, you know, there could be a great movie, and you know this happens a lot, right? But if the music in the background sucks, it's not a great movie.
Ooh.
It's like,
no
what
kidding.
the heck is that? You know, like
it's amazing. I mean, there are songs I've been listening to for 25 or 30 years that'll still bring me to tears.
Yeah.
How do they do that? I remember the first time I heard, and again I referenced the band because I was a huge fan of theirs. But on Robbie Robertson's first album, there's a song about Richard Manuel called "Fallen Angel."
Okay.
And Peter Gabriel sings on it, and it's as a producer, you'd love it. It's so textured and so layered. You don't hear stuff like that anymore. And it's because I love the band so much, and there's a song about Manuel, but it's so beautifully played. And then Gabriel's voice comes in, and he's got that, you know, that Peter Gabriel quality about him.
Right, he's got that. He's got that magic too. You know, it's like that one song that was commercial, but when you see the live concerts, it's amazing. It's called "Your Eyes," that Peter Gabriel did.
Yeah.
Same thing. You listen to that, and all of a sudden you're singing "Kumbaya," man.
No kidding. I saw a bit of his concert is on TV not long ago, where he'd taken a lot of his material from over the years, and he played it with a symphony orchestra. So like there's no bass drums. There's nothing. You know, there's nothing of that. Right. It's all orchestrated, and it's just stunningly powerful.
Well, you know, that's another. You know. I don't know if you. That's interesting. You brought that up. If you ever get a chance, look up Pavarotti with James Brown.
Pavarotti and James Brown. Okay. I'll do that for sure.
It's the song called "It's a Man's World." it will blow you away. And what I do is
James Brown do that once.
Oh, he had Pavarotti had his, orchestra, which is about like 60, 70 musicians, right? And the original version of It's a Man's World was done with strings in the studio back in the 60s. So you can imagine, it's unbelievable.
Oh, I'll seek that out for sure then.
Yeah, and then anybody I've ever showed that to, they go like, "Oh my God, and then your hair stand up. You even get emotional. That was the year they both died, actually, which was amazing.
Oh.
They died both from cancer and stuff. So that same year, like a few months after that concert, both of them died. It was out like when you look at it, you're like, wow, that's kind of a message, you know, and that's the magic that music has. Music has magic. We can't forget that part about that, and I truly believe in that, and I believe that a lot of the great artists come, that have that special thing. There's a reason why they're around, and that can be developed. It's not saying that this is something that you have to be born with. There's a lot of artists that really work hard, and then I believe that magic comes into them. Yeah,
because soul comes from life experience too.
Exactly.
Right? You get your heart broken a few times, and
right. Exactly.
The thing, and life kicks the shit out of you a little bit, and all of a sudden that a guy, you're singing a song now in your late 30s or into your 40s or 50s, and you can deliver it. There's a lot of artists I've interviewed, and guys who've been at it for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. We were talking to David Clayton Thomas a couple of years ago, and he's more or less retired now. Mm-hmm. And I said, all those songs. I said, you've got a bunch of songs when you go perform live, you got some gotta do's, right? There's some songs that you just gotta do,
right?
And I said, how do you call those up? And I've asked a lot of artists this, who've been around a long time. So how do you call that stuff up and make it sound so fresh? And it's a gift that the really, really great ones have. With it, they can put themselves back in that same spot that when they wrote the song or when they first did it. I mean, how many times has James Taylor done Fire and Rain?
Right, of course, and then there's that thing about I might get tired of it, but no, Billy Joel talks about that too, and he says he what he does, he likes to practice when he practices at home, which what I just said, this guy's been around forever, right? He still practices, by the way. So when he practices at home, what he does is he'll take a song and then he just plays it in different styles. So he'll play, let's say Piano Man, and he'll do it reggae and rock and. He'll go through all, and he does it on purpose, and it keeps his chops up, and it keeps him wanting to do it, So he kind of does it on purpose. But then when he gets on stage, he obviously, does the version that everybody recognizes and stuff.
It doesn't seem stale to him. He had a great line. I saw an interview with him, and I'll let you go after this, John. But he had a great interview years ago, and the interviewer was saying to him, talking about his career, and the interviewer was saying, "Well, don't you think you're great?" And he said, "I think I'm competent." And in an era of incompetence, that may appear great.
That's a good. He's been through a lot of stuff. Did you heard about his the publishing problem that he had at the beginning, and he made some mistakes when he was young. So I can see where that statement comes from. Because he did something really I mean, this is public. I'm not saying nothing. I saw him do interviews about this. He had a brother-in-law that he trusted, and he did a divorce, and then 10 years went by, and one day he goes to the bank, and the money was gone. And this is a typical thing that musicians, should listen up to, because this is when you're not paying attention to your business, right? So here's a guy who had millions of dollars. All of a sudden he goes to the bank, and it's in the red because his mother was sick in the hospital, and he was going to get some money to, pay for the bill, for the hospital bills, right? All of a sudden the bank says, "You don't have any money." And all of a sudden, his whole world came down on him. This guy gambled. I think it was. I'm not exaggerating. It was I think it was $90 million in a 10-year period. Gambled it all away because he had the power of attorney to go to his bank account. Yeah. That almost killed this guy. And you know what happened to him after that is that if you notice, he's never made a record ever since, and. He vowed to, his wife left him, the whole thing, the brink, so the model, right? So anyway, she left him, and he was very fortunate that his friends came to his rescue, and the rest was history. So now he's been on the road ever since, and it's almost like a statement, like he says, it's almost like I get this vibe when I listen to him talk about it. It's like, this is what I was meant to do, so let me just stay doing what I know best, you know? And which is performing. And if you're in music, you know, everybody the best feeling in the world when you're a musician that's with a great band is to play.
Yeah,
that's the best of the best.
Yeah, there's a group from Newfoundland, Canadian guys called Great Big Sea, and they've been together 20 years now, and they've had a reasonably successful recording career, but they tour a lot. And I interviewed one of the guys because they were in town not long ago, and I looked at their tour dates, the leg of the tour they were on, and they're doing like 16 shows in 18 days. I said, man, you guys go hard.
That's hard, man. I mean, because that's like no sleep, you know.
Yeah, and I said, why do you do it like that? And he said, well, this way, you know, you get up every day, and all you're thinking about is the show. He said, we get too much time off.
Thank you very much. That's right. I know what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he said, guys start drinking too much, or you start going to the movies, or you're reading books, and you lose your focus. This way, we go like hell for about 3 weeks, then we go home and relax for a bit, and we go back out again for a few weeks at a time, and we go hard. And he said, every day, you can hardly wait to do the show because that's your only focus. So I understood what he was talking about.
Well, you know, that's interesting that you say that because some people ask me, you know, you're always working music all the time, whether it's the studio or working born a musician or doing different things. And I said, well, because I want to be engulfed in music. I want to be music to be around me all the time. And I understand what he's saying because what he basically is saying is as long as I'm surrounded by what I love to do, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, like Duke Ellington said, we're not part-time musicians. You know, we play this is what we do.
That's right. You know, but you got to perform, and you know, and then there's that thing too about that sometimes for whatever reason, rain or it's, Mother Nature, a show people can't show up for whatever reason. A professional guy's going to get up there and perform even if there's only one person. And that's because the show has to go on. That's what it's all about.
Well, listen, John, it's been great to talk to you. It's
likewise.
A great conversation. I appreciate you giving me so much time.
Thank you very much. And if you're ever in Florida, please look me up.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to come and see your place and see how you guys work.
Sure, anytime. Let me know when you're around. We'll hang out. Matter of fact, if you don't mind me saying, I just want to give a shout out to my buddy John Ravenhall from England who flew in yesterday, and we're producing a girl here, Rebecca Skolnick. So we're he's one of the guys on board with us. He's got a company in England called Johnny Boy Records. So we're doing some interesting things, and we had a talk just like we're having right now to about 4 o'clock in the morning last night. It was really good.
Very cool. Well, listen, again, thanks very much, John. I appreciate it. I got your numbers, and if I make it down your way, I'll for sure get in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. I was looking forward to meeting you one day. I think we will.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.